So last story of the night is as the rest of them, a short one, but one that is near and dear to me because it deals with an author that I am a really big fan of and a director I'm a really big fan of. And I was just thinking not too long ago, I wish this book would get an adaptation, which it does already have an adaptation that I love, but it is very different from the book. And I'm a fan of the original book. Like I said, I'm a fan of all this, and that would be The Running Man. The Running Man is, if you didn't know, of course, most people know, the Arnold Schwarzenegger 1980s classic Running Man. But it is based on a Richard Bachman book, The Running Man. And if you didn't know, Richard Bachman is just Stephen King. That's his other name he goes by. He hasn't in a long time, but he used to go by that name with a few books. Usually books like that were some of his shorter stories and things. This is a full-fledged book. I read this book some years ago and really enjoyed it. It's different from King's other work for sure, but it's being helmed. They're making a new version of The Running Man. It just says they're making Stephen King's The Running Man, and it's going to be done by Edgar Wright, which Edgar Wright really has not tripped up yet. He's had nothing but hits. I mean, everything or if not hits, solid ass movies at worst. He hasn't made any bad movies, and or in my opinion, and I think most people are kind of on board with that, saying that his movies are all really good. Everything from, of course, Shaun of the Dead and the Cornetto trilogy, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, one of the most underrated movies in the past few decades. What's the one? The Baby Driver. That was a really exciting flick. He did really well with that. That was much better than I thought it was going to be. He's got a new movie coming out, I think Last Days in Soho is what it's called. His movies are always movies that when I hear about them, except for Scott Pilgrim, of course, I was super excited for that movie, and nobody went, but went and saw it. But all of his other movies, I hear about them, and I'm like, it doesn't sound like that's going to be. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm not like really hyped for it, but then I'm really excited that he's making them, and then I go see them, and I'm like, that was great. And that's how I feel about all of his movies. However, The Running Man, much like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, is a book that I do really like, and I really like the original movie. However, I'm curious, and this article, it just is pretty much saying, just as that title does, it's a stretched out version of that Edgar Wright is going to be making The Running Man based on Stephen King's novel. But it doesn't specify whether this version is going to be based on the novel or the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger film. It mentions both. Says this won't be it does specify that. I just said it. There you go, Jake. Read your material before you go live. This won't be a remake of the 1987 film that starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Baby Driver writer-director will co-write the story with Michael Bacall, and they will be much more faithful to King's best-selling novel. Well, then I am excited, because the novel is extremely different from the movie. Like, very different. The movie and the novel, they have very few things in common, beyond the fact that there is a pseudo TV show where people are hunting down a person or peoples. That's all they got in common. Beyond that, it is totally different. The novel is much more grounded in reality. I think the main character, I don't even think the main character's name is the same. I can't remember, but the main character is not a criminal. He's not he's not in prison. He joins the Running Man of free will. Anyone can. You go to the TV station in that world, and the world is just in decay and decline. It's falling apart. No one can eat. His wife has to walk the streets and be a hooker to get money to make rent and pay and get baby food and stuff. It's a very depressing book. It's got some big downers in it. I do wonder, some of that stuff's like hardcore if they're going to actually do it. And the way that it plays out is not like in some wasteland like in the movie. Now, I love the movie. I love the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's so much fun. But all those like over-the-top characters and stuff, they are not in the book. The book is much more like bounty hunters hunting these people down. And he goes cross country trying to hide and just make it. He has to make it. I can't remember how long it is. He has to make it a certain amount of time. If he does, he gets the prize. And either no one or very few people make it. And this normal guy, seemingly, I don't really want to give it away, especially since they're making a movie now. But the ending is very different. Like in pretty much every fucking way. There are some things, a central part of the ending of this book, I do wonder in the world that we live in now, if they will actually have it go down that way. It could be a thing that happens, a very big thing that happens in the end of the book, could land them in some hot water. Some people could see it as distasteful, I'll say that. But it's a really cool book. It's not an incredibly long book, but it is a full-length book. Even if you, like I said, I love the original film, but it couldn't be any more different from it. But it's still a very entertaining book. Stephen King's a great writer, regardless of what you think of him personally or of his movies or any of that. His books and his writing style are just really damn good. I enjoy his writing. I've read many, many, many of his books, and this is one of them. And I am really looking forward to this, especially since my dumbass didn't read this whole story, and they are basing it on the actual book and not the film. I'm excited to see that because I don't want them to remake the Running Man film. It's just, it doesn't need to be done. But the book, definitely there's a story there to be told, and I think people will be kind of, really surprised at how different the book story is from the original movie from back in the day. But if you are a fan of The Running Man, most specifically the book, which I think more people are probably fans of the movie, but if you are a fan of the book, there's a light on the horizon. Here in the next, I'd say, year or two, we're going to get an adaptation of that from a very, very good director, Edgar Wright. And hopefully he'll do it right. And if anybody would, I think it'd be him. He has a great track record. So I am really looking forward to the Running Man book adaptation that we're going to get here in the next couple of years. Thanks for checking out this clip from the JarCast Movie Podcast. If you like this and want more, then check out the JarCast live stream every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Central Time on the Jacob Anders Review YouTube channel, where you can also find movie reviews every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can also listen to the entire podcast on all major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Google, and iTunes. So if you prefer audio, whichever one is your preferred, check it out there. Once again, I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching. And as always, stay sexy, YouTube.